today I'm going to chat to you about the different ways in which I track my reading. This is very much going to seem a little bit geeky because it's to do with statistics and things, and I really like being able to track my statistics when it comes to reading. So if this isn't for you, please check out something else on my channel. I'd love to have you here. But if you are someone else who really enjoys statistics and seeing how people track their reading, then stick about. So I find it really motivating to have the opportunity to go back and compare my reading with different months and different years and just kind of see what potential factors might have influenced how much I've been able to read. Typically, I have three main ways in which I track my reading, which potentially could seem excessive, but I do have reasons for all of them. So the first way that I usually track my reading is through Goodreads. This seems to be pretty standard across the board. I have used Goodreads since I want to say 2015. And every book that I have ever read as an adult has been logged on there. I don't necessarily like all the functionality of it. I definitely think that it's missing a few tricks and that it could do more to kind of expand what it does. But for me, I like being able to track it because I like seeing my end of year stats all together in the document that they do, the 2023 year in books kind of thing they do. But I also like being able to have an easy way of tracking what books in Goodreads Choice Awards that I have read. I also just think that because it's the first way that I started tracking my reading, I really don't want to have to transfer all of those books. I know that there are easy ways to do it. I'm just not willing to do it right now. Typically, as soon as I finish a book, I will go straight to my Goodreads and I will upload it. I enjoy getting to see that it's telling me how many books ahead of schedule that I have. And I'm not gonna lie, but I do regularly go back through previous years on my reading challenge to see how my frequency of reading has changed, to what genres have changed, I just really enjoy seeing how I've been refining my reading taste to date, and I just find it a really useful tool to have everything in one place. I will say that I probably don't use this in a way a lot of other people use it, in that I don't typically shelve everything to do with a specific year or trope or what I thought of it, whether I DNF'd it or if I loved it or if it's a favourite. I did start doing that years ago, but it really just became a bit too much for me to try and keep a track of where everything was, and I think I just forgot one day and have never carried on since. I really just like to keep an eye on it for upcoming releases. I like seeing what my friends are reading, and that does give me a bit of inspiration to potentially pick something else up. But for the most part, this is the first place I'm going to go when I've finished a book to log it. The second place in which I log my reading is Storygraph. So this, again, I'm still trying to establish it. I think I've imported my Goodreads over to it at one point in time. I can't really remember. I think I have, because I think some of the books on my TBR are now in my TBR on Storygraph, and I don't actually own a lot of the books that are on there anymore. But this was developed as an alternative to Goodreads, and actually there's so much functionality on here that I really rate. So it's fairly easy to add a book if you're maybe reading one that has just been released or it's by an indie author who hasn't had a chance to set it up by themselves, and I really like that aspect of it. It just means that my reading is going to be a lot more accurate. But my favourite page is, of course, the statistics page. So once I have logged everything on Goodreads, typically I go straight to Storygraph and I log everything on here. When you go to log a book, it gives you quite a few options to pick. The mood, the pace, the emotions I think that you felt could also be logged. It logs so much, and it makes these really nice handy pie charts that you can see. So when you go onto your statistics bar at the bottom, you can set your goals right at the top, which I have. I have my goal of 52 books per year, and then my page count goal as well, which is a little bit irrelevant. It's an arbitrary number at this point, but it's still nice to see. From there, you have a couple of pie charts to indicate sizes of books, formats of books, languages of books, moods of the book, and there's also a bar chart further down that tells you who your most popular authors that year have been, which I really like. I think it's nice to see if I'm actually managing to get to authors that I want to read in their backlog. It also keeps me accountable if I'm reading too much Tessa Bailey in a year, so there is that. Further down again, there is like a line graph, and it has both the amount of books that you've read per month as well as the pages per month. And this is my favourite functionality because you can also filter it to go from different months. I could go back and compare February 2024 to February 2022, and I know personally how situations have changed for me since then, so it's kind of interesting to see like how my reading compares to that point. I find this really handy, especially when it comes towards looking at the end of the year and kind of evaluating what was my best reading month, what was my worst, and you can actually click into per month to see what books you actually read that month, which I really like. And then further down from that, you've got a visual representation of your star ratings for the books, which again I love. I find it incredibly handy to be able to click in and see all of my 5-star books that I've rated that year in one place. As far as I'm aware, there is a buddy read functionality where you and a friend could read books at the same time, and I believe, if I'm right, that you can make comments or things like that along the way that they will unlock once your buddy has gotten to that point as well, which I think is really nice because buddy reading is just such a lovely thing to be able to do. I buddy read a lot with my friend Sophie. I think we have potentially used this functionality on the app maybe just the once, but it's very, very handy. I believe that there potentially is more functionality if you pay to subscribe, but honestly I'm really happy with what it does straight off the bat. Final way in which I track my reading may potentially seem overkill to people, and I admit that it probably is, but I love it. So I have created a spreadsheet that tracks my reading. Now, I only started doing this last year, and I have made a few tweaks between last year and this year, given how my goals have potentially changed. The way I have set this up is once a date is added onto the date column, it will add a tally into the box at the top that shows how many books I've read that year. I can then go in and input all of the relevant details, the author's name, the page count, the reason for the amount of pages in a book, and the pages that I read. Lets me account for DNFs and lets me keep an accurate page count going all together. I think this is sometimes my issue with other apps, is that I can't necessarily track my DNFs and how many pages I've read. Now, I'm not a big DNFer, but I have done it occasionally, and at the end of the year I would like to have an accurate representation of how many pages I've read. So that is how that is all tracked. It gives me a chance to put in my star rating. My interest level is kind of what my interest was throughout the book, but you'll see that I'll have some books that were a medium interest but were like a 5-star book, and it could just mean that it was pretty slow going, but actually I ended up loving it. Further on from that, I have a column set up to indicate to me what format I read the book in. A big goal of mine this year is to be reducing the size of my TBR, more specifically my physical TBR. So by tracking how many physical books I've read on my TBR, and I also keep an eye on how many physical books I've bought, this gives me a good indication to whether I'm actually adding to my TBR or if I'm actually managing to reduce that at all. Additionally, as a form of motivation, I actually have a savings challenge related to my book reading. So for every physical book I read, I save £1. For every audiobook or ebook that I read, it is 50p, and for my 12 books that I would like to read in 2024, if I manage to read one of them, I get to save £3. And all of that money gets put separately to the side in a pot, where I will then use it on Boxing Day to go on a bit of a book shopping spree, which has kind of become a tradition with me and my friend Sophie. So I usually put down how much should be saved per month, and then for me, I save it on payday every month, so I'll go back through rather than saving it as I finish the book. And once I have put the money in a savings pot, I will highlight the column green so that I know that I don't need to save that money again. So although yes, okay, it does appear overkill at times, I do have specific reasons for liking each of the ways in which I track my reading, and I just think that it makes my end of year wrap-ups, chats with friends, evaluations of what I've read, it just makes things so much easier for me, and I am just a big lover of stats, so what can I say? But if you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking about and watching me wax lyrical about a spreadsheet. It means a lot that you're sticking about. Let me know down below what ways in which you track your reading, because I am always curious to see how different people will track different things. But if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!